those of you who don't know me, my name is Alex Weston. I'm the convener of Friends of Palestine, Western Australia. First of all, can everyone hear me?
No!
No! I didn't think so. I might need a megaphone up here because the PA does not appear to be working properly.
It's $5, $3.
Hello, hello, hello.
Yeah, good, how are you?
No, we need to hear. Okay, I'll try and speak loudly so that everyone can hear me. Once again, my name is Alex Weston. I'm the convener of Friends of Palestine, Western Australia. I want to thank you all for coming here today, the second rally that we've called in protest against Israel's illegal, murderous, piratical assault on the Gaza Freedom Flotilla in the Eastern Mediterranean Sea that took place Monday morning, which resulted in the deaths of 9 peace activists and some 42 injured. Much more information has come to light since the incident took place. The activists and the journalists on board the Gaza Freedom Flotilla, as you know, were held incommunicado for more than 48 hours. When they were finally released and put on planes to Istanbul, information slowly started to filter out as to the exact nature of the incident that took place on Monday morning. And all of the evidence, all of the eyewitness testimony, all of the professional journalistic accounts have borne testament to the fact that this was an illegal act of piracy and an act of mass murder. There is no question that there was a prima facie case of mass murder here. The 9 Turkish activists, the Turkish pathologists who conducted the autopsies, pulled out 30 bullets, 30 9mm bullets from the corpses of the 9 Turkish activists killed. And they pulled out 5 bullets from 19-year-old Turkish-American Furkan Doğan, who was only 19 years of age. If people have seen photos of Furkan Doğan, they particularly struck me. And matter of fact, I almost broke down when I first saw the photos. He looks like he was a very, very sweet boy, and that's precisely what he was. He was a child. He was just a 19-year-old. A 19-year-old peace activist who was on board the Mavi Marmara as part of the international efforts to deliver humanitarian aid to the people of Gaza. And for his troubles, Furkan Doğan was shot in the head 4 times. As I say, 30 bullets were removed from the 9 bodies of the Turkish peace activists. Some 42 have been injured, many of them seriously. One Australian, Ahmed Lukman Talib, was shot in the leg, 20 years of age. His sister was also detained and his wife was detained. The Australian photojournalist Kate Goretti was tasered in the arm as she was endeavouring to take photos of the commando raid. Several other journalists were beaten. I could go on and on with the details. When people were detained in Beersheba prison, there are many, many reports of people being beaten, being tortured, being brutally interrogated, including journalists, including a whole range of different people. The latest news, of course, which you may not have heard, but you probably have, is that yesterday morning, and there are still very confusing reports coming out, but yesterday morning the merchant vessel Rachel Corrie was intercepted and then raided by Israeli naval commandos. Now, it would appear that the Zionists are playing this one a little more smartly. They realise that the whole world is watching them, and they have not committed any acts of violence. Well, I beg your pardon, they have committed an act of violence by carrying out another illegal act of piracy in international waters with naval commandos armed with machine guns and pistols. So they have carried out another act of violence, but they have played a little more smartly in that they haven't actually killed anyone on this occasion because they realise the whole world is watching. Now, on board the merchant vessel Rachel Corrie, for those of you who don't know, some 10 Malaysian peace activists and half a dozen Irish peace activists. 2 of those Irish peace activists are Mairead Corrigan Maguire, the 1976 Nobel Peace Prize winner, and Dennis Halliday, the former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations. Now, I'm going to repeat that because it's worth repeating, I think. On board this vessel are Mairead Corrigan Maguire, a Nobel Peace Prize winner, and a former Assistant Secretary General of the United Nations. They, along with all the other peace activists on board the Rachel Corrie, were intercepted in international waters, an illegal act of piracy, and they have been taken to the port of Ashdod, and they are going to be detained and then deported. And there is no legal basis whatsoever for them to be abducted and then deported from the country. They weren't even intending to go to Israel. How can you be deported from a country you have no intention of travelling to? They wanted to go to the port of Rafah. Now it's important also to bear in mind that several aid flotillas have successfully reached the Gazan port of Rafah in the past. The Viva Palestina convoy in 2008 was the first vessel to actually independently reach a Gazan port without being interdicted by Israeli authorities for 41 years. So there are precedents for aid convoys actually arriving at the port of Gaza without being intercepted, without being raided by the Israeli Navy. So the question has to be asked, why has the Israeli Navy chosen to act on this occasion by conducting this murderous act of piracy? Well, you can speculate on the reasons why, and you don't necessarily have to agree with my assessment, but my own personal assessment is that Israeli leaders, Israeli strategists have recognised the increasing pressure, the enormous amount of pressure that their regime is under from the international community, from millions of ordinary people like you and I around the world supporting their boycott, divestments and sanctions campaign against Israel, who are increasingly recognising that Israel resembles an apartheid state, who are increasingly recognising that Israeli leaders ought to be brought before the International Criminal Court, who are increasingly recognising that Israel is a pariah state and Israel is a terrorist state. They're feeling that pressure. And my view is that they felt in their insanity, in their panic, in their hysteria, they felt that the best way to react to this peace flotilla was to deliberately carry out an act of mass murder in order to deter future aid flotillas from sailing to the waters of Gaza. So they hadn't intercepted those previous aid ships, as I said, but on this occasion their decision was, we're not going to allow this anymore. We're going to make a statement to the world that don't mess with us. If you try and deliver aid to the people of Gaza, this is what we'll do to you. So it's a very, very dangerous situation. Israel, I think it's fair to say, is, as Norman Finkelstein, the great Jewish American scholar, said, Israel is increasingly resembling a lunatic state. Not only a state that is beyond the boundaries of international law, not only a state that is dedicated to colonialism and expansion and the illegal occupation of Palestinian land, but a state that is genuinely now becoming a lunatic state. A lunatic state that is armed with some 200 nuclear weapons. And again, you might not agree with me, but my personal feeling is that if there's any state in the world, outside perhaps of the United States, that would be willing to use nuclear weapons, that one could conceive of as actually using nuclear weapons, it would be Israel, which is a terrifying thought as the Zionist leaders continue to beat the war drum against Lebanon, beat the war drum against Iran. We're in incredibly dangerous territory. We've crossed the Rubicon. The world is in an incredibly dangerous state, and Israel plays a very big role in making the world a more dangerous place as time passes. I'm going to make a few comments later on, and I'm going to put some formal demands to the crowd to place on the Australian Foreign Minister Stephen Smith. But we do have a few speakers today, and remember, of course, that we are marching to the US consulate. But we do have a couple of speakers to get through before we go on the march. Senator Louise Pratt is a Labor senator. She is a member of the Australian Parliamentary Friends of Palestine, and I think it's very good to have a member of the Labor Party here. I don't want to have a go at Louise now, but certainly her own Foreign Minister's comments have been very disappointing. And I think it's good that we're hearing a dissenting voice from within the ranks of the Labor Party. So I introduce you now to Labor Senator Louise Pratt.
Thank you, Alex. I'd like to begin by acknowledging the Noongar people, the traditional owners of the land in which we gathered today. The blockade of Gaza is completely unsustainable, so I thank you for coming along today to play your part in highlighting this and responding to the tragic deaths of those seeking to get through the blockade. Raising your voices against the blockade, highlighting the injuries and detention of many others. I pass on best wishes from Melissa Park, the member for Fremantle, who spent 2 years in Gaza and who knows the humanitarian situation. Filters and irrigation pipes, fishing nets, engine spare parts, cement, and the list goes on. Farmers are unable to rebuild vital agricultural land or roads because of a lack of construction materials like concrete and heavy equipment. We know that the goods imported via tunnels from Egypt are often sold at inflated prices that Palestinians cannot afford. Nearly 50% of Gaza's agricultural land is inaccessible or out of production because of previous military activities or because the land is on a no-go area along the border.